Welcome to the 7th talk of the second season of Tiny Lab Talks. Tiny Lab Talks are informal 30-minute conversations with invited American specialists visiting the University of Aveiro, promoted by University of Aveiro American Corner, to share knowledge in an accessible and engaging way. The talks are live streamed on the University of Aveiro's YouTube channel. I'm Inês Direito. I'm a researcher in engineering education at the Center for Mechanical Technology and Automation here in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. I also hold an honorary senior researcher position at the Center for Engineering Education at University College London. Right now, I'm leading an exploratory project called Empathic Engineering Education for Sustainable Development, which is funded by the Foundation for Science and Technology, FCT in Portuguese, and developed together with my colleagues of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Carla Ferreira, Bárbara Gabriel, and Robert Valente. We're also fortunate to have Dr. Aida Guerra as a project partner and Dr. Bairaktarova as our consultant, bringing valuable expertise to the work. So I want to give a warm welcome to both our guests today. I'm here joined by Dr. Bairaktarova, our special guest from the United States of America. She's an associate professor in the Department of Engineering Education at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. She is also an affiliate faculty in the Department of Mechanical Engineering and the faculty in the Human-Centered Design at Virginia Tech. Diana is also the 2025-26 Fulbright US Scholar at the Technical University Sofia in Bulgaria. Diana has over 15 years of experience working as a design and manufacturing engineer. Before joining Virginia Tech, Diana was an assistant professor of engineering practice in the School of Aerospace and Mechanical at University of Oklahoma. She taught several fundamental and engineering design courses where the design of artifacts was addressed from a multidisciplinary perspective and implementation of design thinking framework. As an engineer with extensive industry experience and also as an engineering education researcher with knowledge of how people learn, Diana aligns her research, her teaching and service with the mission of creating and supporting an innovative and inclusive engineering profession for the 21st century. And then Dr. Aida Guerra is Vice Director of Aalborg Center for PBL in Engineering Science and Sustainability under the auspices of UNESCO, and also Associate Professor within the field of Problem-Based, Project-Organized Learning, PBL, and Engineering Education for Sustainable Development at the Department of Planning at the Institute of Advanced Studies in PBL, also Aalborg University in Denmark. She holds a PhD degree in PBL and Education for Sustainable Development in Science and Engineering Education, and her current research focus is on PBL, curriculum and pedagogical development, readiness for change, integration of sustainability in engineering education, student agency for sustainability and competencies. Aida is also co-chair of the Special Interest Group on Sustainability in the European Society for Engineering Education, also known as CEFI. So, wonderful to have you both here today. The topic of our talk is on empathy in engineering education. And as we begin this conversation, let's ground ourselves in a shared intention. So let's discuss how empathy shapes engineering education at a moment when the profession is being transformed by artificial intelligence, global uncertainty, but also and mostly urgent sustainability challenges. So our goal today is to share experiences and deepen our understanding of how empathy can guide engineers, and I would say also students in higher education, toward more human, responsible and sustainable forms of practice. But before we start our discussion, can I ask your definition of empathy? So, Diana, could you please start?
Well, first of all, thank you, Inês, for the lovely introduction, and then thank you for having me here. To me, empathy is a fundamental human quality. It is our ability as humans to take a perspective of someone that is not us, even briefly, and to engage with that perspective with someone else's experience, and to me it's important to distinguish empathy from compassion, because empathy is understanding someone else's perspective, while compassion is how we react to that other perspective, how we engage with through care, for example. Empathy is very important in the engineering profession and of course in engineering education. As engineers, we create solutions, but we create solutions, technologies, systems with the human in mind, with the environment in mind. And only when we practice the profession with empathy, then we practice the profession being socially responsible, being ethical.
Oh, it's, well, what do I have to say? Thank you, Inês, for having me, and thank you also for the introduction. What I was thinking while Diana was talking is more on the why. Right? So empathy is actually this why I'm also here. Why do I do this? Why do I need this? Why my peer need this? So I think it's also very much on the why as well. And I think that's also what connects us with where we are, but also connect us with the one next to us. So I complement Diana's words by putting this in this perspective of the why. I know the what, I know the how, but why, it opens another perspective to the engineering profession or any other profession, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and thinking about engineering and what it means to be an engineer, and I think you've already touched a bit on the relationship or the importance of empathy for engineers and engineering practice. But how do you think empathy and the discussion around empathy is reshaping what it means to be an engineer nowadays in the age of AI and that is performing technical and analytical work for engineers, right? So they have something else doing this for them. So how empathy can shape what they are, what an engineer is nowadays? Well, how do you see this coming into play?
Yes, thank you for that question, because now it seems like every conversation that we witness or we are in, if we not bring AI, we're not current. So, but to me, AI can give us answers, can create engineering solutions, especially on the analytical, computational analysis, computational part of those solutions. But the engineers, the professionals, are the ones who ask the hard questions, who those solutions are intended for, who has access to those solutions, what are the unintended consequences of those solutions. And to me, in the era of AI, empathy, practicing empathy, teaching our engineering students to identify with empathy, being empathic engineers, AI actually brings the human part, and it's more important nonetheless.
Yes, and I follow and totally agree. Normally, I ask my students this: what makes you an engineer? And they don't know actually how to answer at the master level. So they spend an entire education. When you ask about identity, they actually have to stop and think, okay, what makes me an engineer? And the first answer they give is solve problems. And I said, okay, then you are also a mathematician or a physicist, right? Because they also solve problems. And they look at, oh, but then what is making me an engineer? What makes you an engineer different from the one next to you? So it's these human attributes, and empathy is one of those attributes. So there is a need to simplify for problems to be solvable, feasible, tackable, but it doesn't mean we need to remove those human dimensions. Recently, I heard this conversation of famous CEO, American CEO on tech world.
NVIDIA,
Exactly.
right? I think you mentioned, yes.
I mentioned it, and it was asked, what is the most smart person you met? And he said, I cannot answer that question. A person can be technical astute, but if the person does not have these human-centric attributes, he used this word, then probably is not the most smart, because now it's our ability to see the corners, is our ability to anticipate, is our ability to relate. So engineers actually is a human and social activity. It's not detached from that. So I think that is the awareness we need to have, reflect on, and also have this conversation with our students about it.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I always tell my engineering students, the world doesn't need another Einstein. But the world needs compassionate people who can put themselves in the shoes of others, people who can even briefly for a moment take other people's perspective, even they know that that perspective could be different from theirs. And this is why I think that empathy is a fundamental human quality, and it is also learnable, if we could say learnable ability. And it's very important that we start teaching for empathy, not that late in college, but in very early school education. And I know that around the world there are many places that such education exists.
That's a wonderful point to my next question, actually. And we're so fortunate to have here today two people with extensive experience in teaching and in diverse contexts with students from all over the world, both in Denmark and the United States. So, from your experience, what learning techniques or learning experiences do you think help students not only learn about empathy but practice empathy in the classroom? What could you share with us that you do in your practices?
If I may start?
Yes, sure.
To me, there are many practices, many activities that already my colleagues around the world in engineering education do. To me, the biggest shift is when students are not learning just about empathy or their understanding what empathy is, but the shift comes when they experience empathy. And those activities, those practices in the engineering classroom can come in a variety of forms and opportunities, like a project-based learning, community-based projects, different exercises, different small mini projects or assignments that students can reflect and to get to that aha moment that everything that they learn and they will practice later, creating artifacts, creating systems, creating models are actually intended for the use of humans. And then their profession is very human-centered. And then nowadays we also talking about more than the human world, the other ecosystems. So I have a variety of exercises, projects, just different pedagogies that I use in the classroom. One of those is the human face activity that I've been using in my classroom on all levels, from first year engineering students to master and PhD students. I adapted that activity from UNESCO and allowed students to actually put a face to someone's story, learning from someone's story, but also going through that exercise that they make that persona more real. And I usually do this at the very beginning of a project when they need to decide on the directions of, because one problem could have so many solutions. But the most important is that students start to think about the experiences of that person or community beforehand, before engaging with the project, and then allows also the teams, because I also like that nowadays we can train our students to work in teams, which is very important, and that's one way also to exercise empathy towards their teammates. The bottom line is, the more opportunities we provide students to work with real people, to immerse themselves in real people's environments, real communities, the more we helping them develop and enhance that fundamental human quality.
And it was really interesting when you were mentioning the human face activity. It's about, so engineering students are great in solving problems, right? And they jump immediately into the analytical mode. What is the problem? Let's get it solved. But they don't shift, and our colleague Niki Sohachka has been developing this shift between analytical mode and empathic mode. So designing a human face, seeing who the user is, imagining their realities, their challenges, makes students switch from the analysis to the person, right? Because it can be so abstract. Who are they solving the problem to?
And if I complement this, because coming from a problem-based learning project organized institution with 50 years, that all engineers learn by solving real and authentic problems, what is actually transformative for them is then when they have to frame the problems. The problem doesn't come to them, they actually have to frame, define what is the problem here. It's transformative when they actually engage with the user. And interesting, there are studies, a paper from a colleague in Australia, that they actually follow a 10-year program, problem-based project organized, and the shift of the students' perception of what is innovation also changed, depending if they are actually getting this information from the users, from the context or rural area in India or whatever, and they also shift, because then innovation is not about technology, it's actually about those people in that place and their life, and they're thriving, and it's transformative for them. It becomes completely not for the sake of creating and growth, and then we can talk about those issues in connection with sustainability, but actually looking into the thriving of the community, how they can actually leverage on what they have. And this is very, very transformative for their mindset as well.
Just if we could briefly mention, I experience, and it brings so much joy to me to see how those transformative experiences humble our students, in the sense that they no longer insisting on their solutions without knowing what actually is important to the community their solutions are built for.
Can I just compliment Inês, because I teach professional competencies, transversal competence to first-year students, but then I also am responsible for professional development or in teachers' capacity building. And it's very interesting because teaching is a creative endeavor. It's a design task as well. And we are so limited to that. But when we actually work with the students in the first year and see how they came already getting to the university with so many things formatted, so many things, this is how engineers do, this is what is engineering about, then we actually have to deconstruct this. And these transformative aspects are fundamental for them to see, okay, this is the role I can have in the world, in the profession, in the community. So it's not about only profit, it's not only about innovation, but it's also about giving something back. And when we talked with teachers and talk about how can we actually educate not only considering the head, right, or the hands, but also the heart and the spirit.
The whole person.
The whole person, because I think that is the fundamental part now, the whole person. Then this is also transformative for the teachers. And using empathy maps, that is such a simple tool that you can use to manage conflicts in the group, that you can also ask 10-year-old students to actually say, this task was hard. How do you feel about it? How do you actually thought about it? And by doing this exercise continuously, we could actually see their handwriting change, their self-belief, their belief in themselves change, and feel more empowered, and ask for help. So no man is a woman, or no person is an island, right? So this is the power of empathy. So this is also transformative for the teachers and the teachers.
Yeah. If we could mention, or if we have to move to the other question.
I mean, we've been discussing empathy as a professional way of being, as a practice orientation, and as a learnable skill, right? That students could practice in the classroom and outside of it. I would like to perhaps refocus the discussion a bit more around sustainability and how empathy can support education for sustainable development, right? It's important that students have a focus on human-centered design and who are they designing the solutions for, and the impact it has in the ecosystems, the cultures, the contexts. But how, from your practice and from what you've been observing and studying, how do you think empathy can be more meaningfully and explicitly used as a tool for these sustainability challenges?
I can start.
Yes, absolutely.
So if we look into the Sustainable Development Goals, they say no person should be left behind. Right? So when we move as a collective. Then you have the need for it. That's one element. But I will give a step back and think about what do we mean by sustainability. And that's a very difficult concept to grasp. So maybe we should look into as a transferable or transversal aspect. Doing the research in sustainability education or education for sustainable development, what is being considered is that we need to look into the values of it. Right? Fairness, democracy, ownership, participation, and then we said, how do we embed these principles, these values within our practice, within our curriculum, with our teaching activities? And then we actually start looking from a systems perspective. It's about the sustainability of the individual. And then you see that your students are happy, that your students thrive in education. Then it's the empathy you need to have, because you have to have that perspective and you have to accept difference. You have to accept that people are different and they have different goals, and create their awareness so they can become empathic with themselves and extend that value to others, right? And then you start looking into the context you are in, your team, then actually where actually the problems lies in terms and how engineering can provide a solution. But then you broaden this scope to looking into, okay, what are the constraints of the environment? And then you connect with the nature, right? With the boundaries you have on the planet. So this nesting perspective, we can actually say, we can start with the individual. And I think this is fundamental to say, how is sustainability here playing a role? So what do we mean by this? Do I want to know life cycle assessment? We have experts for that. And that's their content, right? So, yeah.
Well, Aida said all, but if I have to say it in a more simple way, empathy is a sustainability skill or quality
attribute. Yeah, we could have this discussion forever. Yes.
Because what engineers do, create solutions. But to create solutions, they have to understand, interconnect, how all those different systems interconnect. And we interconnect with the ecosystem, with all those boundaries that we have on Earth, as you mentioned, but also with the human system. And if you not have that ability to see the whole interconnection and to apply empathy, to apply this human-centered understanding, or more than the human system, the other ecosystems, then this whole person or the engineer that it's part of our professional identity to be empathic, it's not going to be complete. And in that sense, empathy is no longer an additional professional skill or quality that engineers need to exhibit. It's becoming essential.
An essential part of who they are and
Of
what they do.
our identity, it's essential quality to have, to be taught, to improve constantly.
All right. I think we could stay here for hours, and
Yes.
I think we're all very passionate about this topic and the importance of it for engineering education, but also for education more broadly, and considering the human perspective as also as a developmental perspective, right? I think everybody would be in a better place if we were more empathic. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you both for participating in the Tiny Light Talk.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, and thank you, American Corner, for initiating the talk.